bad I talk about you. We all know that's true. All right. So let's talk about the growth mindset. I'm going to touch on it just a little bit because, like I said, every single person that led up to this presentation really talked about every single principle that went along with it. But I'm just going to build upon decades of research by Dr. Carol Dweck. She is a psychologist at Stanford University, and she has consistently studied what it's like to create results from a growth mindset. And when you think about it, it's really two parts. A fixed mindset and then the growth mindset really helps you challenge people, challenge yourself, and helps you grow. A fixed mindset is scared of new things. Now, we learned all day about AI technology. We talked all day about driving innovation. How many of you saw some of this and said, I didn't know they could do that? Right. Today, we have to talk about not just how it is, so not just the tools, but how we fix our mindsets to be able to use it. All right? So, setting the stage, typically for leadership, when we're talking about the why, we talk about success. Leaders and executives won't make money. End of the day, doesn't care what they're doing, it's all about making money. What is it that we want as chapter leaders in the organization, in our organizations, in the chapters? If leaders for executive companies want to make money, you want to grow membership, right? You want to grow people coming into Southern University, right? Figuring out very specifically what needs to happen in order for that to occur is what your goal and your role is. Innovation rate. You just literally saw an entire communication plan being built in minutes. It would have taken an entire team 6 months of meetings weekly. We get paragraph done at a time in order for us to be able to move forward. So we have, in our lifetime, the biggest ability to be able to innovate more quickly. And then adaptability. So of professionals, adaptable thinking is the most valuable trait. As an executive, I never liked for anyone to say, well, we can't do this because we can't. Well, why? Because we can't. And why? Because we did this before. Y'all got people in your chapter like that? Every single time you bring up a new idea, we can't do that. Why? Because we did it before. Oh, okay, and it didn't work. All right, well, when did we try it? 10 years ago? I don't know. Maybe lots of things have changed in 10 years. Let's try it again. How many times have you said or thought about, and I heard this gentleman say the age range in his chapter, 40s to 80s, right? So how many people have said at one point, oh, my chapter won't do this because it's a little too older, so they're not into technology, right? My grandmother is 87 years old and texts better than anybody. She uses emojis and everything. I'm like, when did you come up with this emoji? I don't even know what this means. Stop limiting people because you feel as though they may not want to. You don't know that they don't want to do it or they don't know to do it unless they tell you so, right? So you got to ask the question in order to get to the innovation, in order to get to the goal of doing membership and helping to bring students to Southern University. All right, let's see. Okay, so understanding the growth mindset. Let me tell you how I started working with the growth mindset. Personally, it was my experience. So for years, everybody liked me when I was at work. And my mama would see people that I worked with say, I don't know what you do with people, but every time I tell them that you're my daughter, it's like, oh my gosh, Renada's your daughter. She's so nice. Well, I met that coworker that couldn't stand me. Couldn't stand the word I said. Every single thing I did was wrong. And I'm killing them with kindness and doing what God said do. Love me anyway, right? I'm sitting here, I'm trying to explain to him, well, no, you really got to get what I'm saying because I'm right? And everybody likes me, and everybody listens because they like me. He still ain't like me. I tried to help him. He took the help and still ain't like me, right? When it came to him, I finally reached a point in this relationship where instead of me trying to bring him along, oh, I'm going to show him. How many of you have people in your chapters that every time they bring something up, they're constantly against it, and so you go to your chapter and you ready, locked and loaded. Yeah. I know Sharon gonna ask a question, and I know what she gonna say, because I heard from Carol, she was talking about this the other day, so I'm gonna come prepared for her question. And then everybody in the room knows I have problems because of the way it came out, but does that help your culture? No, It doesn't, not at all. So when I was sitting here doing my best to work with this person, and he absolutely wasn't into any of it, and then finally I got mad. I was triggered. He threw me under the bus in a meeting, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to show up as the girl you want me to show up as. And what I'm going to do is show you up. I worked to just prove him wrong and prove his department stupid every day. Every day. That was my goal. I wasn't focused on my work. I was just focused on making sure everybody knew I was good. Like, oh, I don't know. That department did that. I don't know how this mistake happened. John, I'm not going to say his real name. John, do you know how it happened? Oh, okay. Well, it wasn't me. It wasn't my little department. Y'all just stupid. So I was real happy to do that. Then one day, because I left my job at 8 p.m. on a Friday. Because we had a meeting, exec meeting on Monday morning. And what was I doing? I'm going to make sure everybody knew John was stupid. Right? And his team. So, I'm going to sit here and work my behind off until 8 p.m. on a Friday to show him. When he left at 3 p.m., he could have left at noon, as most people leave. But I'm here at 8. I walked out of that building. I walked out of that building and saw all that darkness and empty parking lots. And I said, you did all this when your friends out having margaritas on a Friday, because you're going to show John up. And that's supposed to make who feel better? Whose values are you working against, right? I'm sitting out. Everybody like me because I don't ever work against anybody. Oh, but I work against John. And then I thought one day, so I had to challenge my limiting beliefs and say, you ain't worth me changing who I am. I'm going to need to just go ahead and not focus on you. Because I had diagnosed it with everything. Bipolar, everything. I was like, he a middle child. What is that? Yeah. Every single, and I behaved accordingly. But you know what? Guess who else behaved accordingly? So did he. So did he. So in your chapters, when you're having conversation with people and you come locked and loaded for them, they locked and loaded for you. And the culture that you create is one that everybody else watching. So as leaders, it's important that fixed mindset that some people have that avoids challenges, gives up easily, that you don't throw it away. You figure out how to make that thing work. And you embracing a challenge as leaders, it's really important that you work to figure that out and that you persist despite obstacles. It doesn't mean you ignore people's feelings. Doesn't mean you ignore them, even if y'all think they stupid, right? I'm just saying, I'm just being honest with you. Everybody didn't like me, right? Every tool in the shed ain't sharp. However, every tool in the shed has value, okay? So view effort as a path to mastery. In my work, one of the things that I would consistently talk about, so former chief diversity officer, and one of the things that my team would get mad every single time we would do something, and somebody would throw a wrench in it, and then like, it's not even worth it, you just throw up your hands. Let me tell you something. Some things have existed well before we got here. We will never see the end of this work. If you honestly think that you're about to work your way out of generations-long challenges, well, honey, you need to change jobs. Because we are mere stewards to get us to the next level. You are building legacy, not moments. Leaders are building moments. Leaders are building movements. Bosses are building moments. And who you want to be? As your chapter leaders, you have to make sure that you understand that you are a steward to go to the next generation, for the next generation, because we're about ensuring the perpetuity of your chapter and most importantly of Southern University. We are under attack. And if we die, what else dies? Legacy dies. So, all right, so challenging the growth mindset, understanding what it is, understanding what my moment was when I realized I'm putting forth all this effort to get somebody when at the end of the day, it ain't worth it. And who is losing? Me. Friday nights. All right. Yes. Growth mindset moments. I just told you about mine. Identify a time when you shifted from a fixed mindset. My fixed mindset was that I'm fixed on getting you in this moment, but I had to shift that. So each of us have had a moment where we trying to change our perspective, and I'm going to send you guys the handout after this. I want you to think about as well, think about what triggered your shift and what actions did you take. I explained what happened with mine. But let's talk about triggers for a moment. Earlier, and like I said, everybody was amazing. So we talked a little bit, Dr. England talked about triggers. Anybody know how they feel physically when they get mad? Yep. What happens to your body? Yep. Somebody tell me. You start shaking. Yes. All right. Yes. You jittery. Okay. Well, who else? You said your head hurts?
Gets hot.
Your head gets hot. It's physical, right in the back of the neck. Right? Okay. What else? Anybody else? Hands start getting sweaty. Somebody hands start moving. I start sweating. Oh, yes. I don't know. Your eyes start twitching. When you mouth starts getting tight, yes. You know when you about to be triggered. And honestly, there's some people that just automatically trigger you. When they start, let's be honest, there are people that just gonna trigger you no matter what they say. The sky is blue. Right. When you recognize that feeling, I need you to sit in that moment and identify, you know what, I'm in this moment. Because that's when you know the most you need to watch your mouth. Right? Don't let that thing you think you come out your mouth. Because that never works out. And you ever said something when you angry, you're like, man, I really wish I could take that back. Or maybe I could say it, but just in a different way. I ain't have to cuss you out like that. I could have just told you. And okay, I'm the only person that's ever, okay, that's fine. Mrs. So don't hear me over there. Mrs. So knows me since I was in college, and I don't ever want him to think that bad word is ever crossed my lips. But at 45, maybe a little bit, as opposed to that, 19-year-old. But at the same time, you gotta know when you triggered so that you can change the behavior, the next words coming out of your mouth. If at any point the words come out that you can't take back, everybody paying attention is immediately assessing that and immediately pouring that into the culture of your child. Who wants to go around a place that's messy? Everybody talking about they ain't got time. Let's come from somewhere.
I got 2 minutes.
Here, like I can see everybody's like, oh no, I never gonna be around. I don't want to be around.
I got 2
I'm
minutes.
just saying, people are messy, and nobody want to be around you because you come from somewhere. But when you recognize that this is occurring, you have the ability to shift it. Organizations as well as chapters behave like people. Why? Because they run by people. Yeah. And people are what? Messy. And not messy as in messy, but messy as in emotional. You don't know what your chapter member has going on in their life, and they showing up in that meet anyway. They could have a parent sick, a family member has something going on. We don't stop being who we are at the door when we walk into any place, whether that's your job, whether that's chapter meeting, or what have you. And the thing I'm going to ask you to do is give people a little bit of grace. Because you want some. It's your exchange insights with colleagues and talk about your experiences because you don't know what's going on in whose life. Your growth mindset moments are the things that make the difference for you. Drive innovation. So, Kia was talking about a lot of things. How many of you, and a lot of really good things, and for the record, I felt very proud. I'm one of those businesses that was like, sorry, I feel very, very proud in this moment. But growth mindset encourages you to fail. As leaders, is that the thing you want to do? No, you don't. You can just go ahead and say it. Nobody wants to fail. When you accept your leadership, you want to win. Because you don't run for chapter leadership to be a loser. You want people to say 3, 4, 5, 10 years later, that was the best chapter president we've ever had. But you don't get there until you have to learn lessons in between. I had to learn lessons. You all have learned lessons in your life. Once you do it, you're never going to do it again. Right. Mom said, no, don't steal. You steal something. Well, I say, my mom. I stole a pack of Rolos out of the soup stove on Greenwood Springs Road. And I was dumb enough to be sitting there eating them in the back of the car. After I had asked for them, she's like, where did you get these Rolos from? And I'm like, the store. I didn't see you pay for them. I did. Lying. Mama whooped my tail from the house back to the superstore, made me give the people the pack of Rolos and apologize and told them you can call the police if you want to. Right? Feel free. I tell you you what, I ain't gonna put my hands on nothing else that didn't belong to me. You gotta learn to fail. You gotta fail in order to learn, right? There are lessons that you've learned throughout your whole life. So why now, when we become adults, when we become leaders, we feel like, oh no, failure is not an option. Failure is how you learn. Now, it doesn't mean you fall on your face every time like I'm a great leader, but it does mean you give things a try. You gotta be open to new ideas and the new things that fuel breakthrough approach thinking. Because every idea that could possibly fail isn't necessarily wrong. It might be a little bit tweaking. As kids talked about intergenerational leadership and working in different groups, that's one of the biggest things that helps. So, as a DEI officer, what do y'all think is the biggest call I would get? When people say, oh, we got a problem in this department. That's the obvious, by the way. It was multi-generational communication. So here's the thing. Now, I would walk into the room, and everybody think they know whose side I'm on and everything. Typically, one person versus another. They're like, she's on their side. Okay, this ain't gonna go well for me. I've been accused more terminations than I actually did. But that's okay too. So, I'm standing in the room of one person who physically, by way of race and ethnicity, looks one way, another one by race and ethnicity who looks another way, and people think that this is a race and ethnicity issue when it ain't. It's a communication problem. Yeah. When you learn to communicate on a rotary phone, it teaches you what? Patience. Right. Patience. When you learn to communicate via call my mama, what does it teach you? Instant gratification and expediency. Today, we have 5 generations in the workforce. That has never happened. Because every big mama was at home, right? My grandmother was making 3 meals a day, and I don't know how. By the time she was one of my coworkers' age, and had been doing it for a long time. We have people who are working longer, but how many that's the same different span in your chapters? And there are communication issues. As Kia talked about working with leaders and giving people opportunities, let me tell you, everybody has value. So, yes, if you're just hearing about AI, I bet you there's somebody that's in your chapter 10 years younger that uses it every single day. How do we not know that? Are we assessing our membership skill sets? Have any of you ever completed an assessment of your membership to say, what skills do you have? What do you think we need? And how can we apply it? Have we done that? One of the things you got to do, you got to know what's in the room. Use your resources. Southern University teaches you to live in back. Now that we know. Right? We become real innovative. That's why we succeed at work. And everybody just, I don't know how to do this. We fail. Just do this, you do that. You may figure out when the lady that cleans the building is so still a very nice lady. When she comes in, she tell you anytime every professor is in the building, and then you make sure you bring her something nice, and she will say, they will be back at 3 o'clock. But you don't say they're doing 3 o'clock. Mm-hmm. You learn how to figure out how to do things a different kind of way, because when you live in life, you learn to live different. So the same thing is true for your chapters. Think about, use your resources. How many of you know executives, big companies that came from Southern University? Several of them. Yep. How many of you know young people, early 5 years of their career, they came from Southern University? Yep. Let me tell you what early people, young 5 years of their career want to have. Relationships with big executives. How do you utilize those relationships is how you survive. Kia talked about development. You got to constantly grow. What other organizations are you in? How many of you in your professional organizations? All right. What y'all doing in the professional organizations? You go to your meetings? How active are you? What kind of things do they do? No, do they? How often do you meet in your other organizations? Once a month? All right. So weekly. Okay. What are y'all doing? Community work. Is it well attended? Sharing best practices. Okay. What else? Service. Yeah. How you doing? We're the same channel. Services. People come out. Let me tell you about the generational groups. Young people actually like to do your habitats for humanity. And so what? They want to post themselves on social media doing, let it do it. Somebody didn't get it done. Right? When it comes to that generation, that's how you utilize them, figure out what it is they want to do. And that's how you bring them into your chapter. When she talked about posting people on LinkedIn, and I keep having to do this, because when I tell you everybody picked up parts, I was like, okay, I don't even know what I'm going to be talking about at this point. But when she talked about highlighting your people, let me tell you what young people early on in their career want. Somebody will tell them they're great, so why don't you do it? If we can't tell our own they great, like, oh, look, you got this promotion, that's amazing. You know they will share that to their mama, their daddy, like, it's just going to be a whole thing. And what that invests in them is a continuation that Southern still cares about me. And if Southern still cares about me, shouldn't I still care about Southern? Yeah. How do I consistently pour into the place that consistently pours into me? Yeah. Maybe I need to do that. Yes. Maybe this is a reciprocal thing. That's how you drive innovation. Experiment with it. If it doesn't work out, try something different. Okay? Risk tolerance. So leaders with growth mindset create psychological safety. Okay. How many of you are familiar with the term psychological safety? Yes. The ability to say whatever it is you think. In organs and feel in a respectful way. In a respectful way. I work on this with organizations with engagement, employee engagement. Same thing is true for chapter engagement. Someone who is not engaged will see you about to run into a train and not say a word. They were like, well, yep. You're just gonna hit that train. How I explain it to leaders is someone who will be in your department sees a huge mistake on their slide list. And if they don't feel like anything that they say is gonna be taken into account, you know what they're gonna do? Ain't my problem. I'm gonna say that. They're gonna let you go out there and just be a whole fool. Because you don't create the kind of environment where I feel comfortable enough to say something. So I know Cheryl must talk a lot. I know somebody who messages with lots of emojis and got lots of things to say. But sometimes you just need to listen. Everything is wrong. A moon cloud is right at least twice a day. Maybe it's the second time. All right? Make sure that you create the kind of environment where it's okay for everybody to talk. And even if it's not a verbal thing, send out a survey, like Kia said. Even if you, because that way you ain't got anybody in the chapter meeting, they already said it. Yep. They've already said it, and when the chapter meeting comes up, make sure you put their feedback on that slide. Because if you don't, they're going to tell everybody that you did. All right? That gets it out there. All right? Yes and thinking. So replace yes but, meaning stop, with yes and build on ideas. Now this don't even take people ideas. Y'all know what I mean? You ever said something, and somebody in the room goes right back and says the same thing you said, and everybody says, oh yeah, that's a great idea. But I said it. So you use that sandwich language. Yes. And blah, blah, blah. Give the people the credit. Okay? So that's okay. All right, next thing. Enhancing collaboration, like open dialogue feedbacks. We talked about that, whether that's assessments, whether that is actually looking at what other organizations do. Now, some of you, we talked about other organizations. How much your other organizations, how many times on a consistency do your other organizations offer development? They don't? Like, think about your professional organizations. Y'all offer development? I'm in SHRM, which is HR and ATD. Every single meeting is about learning something. Even if it's something I learned 16 years ago, it's always about learning something. And so you create the kind of opportunities for everybody to learn something, whether it's something small. So make sure that you keep that open dialogue and foster experiences where everybody's heard. Knowledge sharing, that's the learning something. If you have experts in your chapter, which a lot of you do, because we are experts in a lot around Southern University, use them. Constructive feedback. Let me talk about this because I've heard feedback a lot, and I talk about feedback a lot. But let's be honest, everybody knows how to give feedback. Right. Think about your families. Somebody said something 25 years ago, somebody holding on to. Yeah. The moment they say boo to them, everybody gonna go off. Because Auntie said 25 years ago, they ain't like your daddy, and you remembered every single family reunion, and all she got to do is say one word, and you gonna let her have it. Because that's what we do. Everybody know how to give feedback. And so because we talked about feedback a lot, what is an idea we need to do in our chapter? Survey. How about we teach people how to give feedback? That will help them in their professions and help them in your chapter. So you get somebody in there that is an expert at teaching feedback to help people learn how to communicate. That's developing them, investing in them, and actually saving yourself a headache. You give them a framework for how to do that. You show them how to do that, how to apply it. You apply it, and then when you hear that feedback in the meetings, it's familiar feedback in a way that you can accept it. Because the other part about not everybody can give it is not everybody can accept it. You ever had to tell somebody they did something wrong? And no, I didn't. I'm not wrong. You're wrong. I'm not wrong. You're wrong. They mad at you 3 weeks later because you gave them feedback. Even people who say, I love when people give me feedback. Y'all know those people? All the time. No, I'm really great at accepting feedback. And no, you don't. You don't like anybody tell you anything but you want to. Right? All right. Navigate the change in a circle. Period. We're going through this time of disruption. As Omarosa talked about all of these innovative strategies for donating money and doing all these things, how many of you had ever heard of these things? I was writing a bunch of notes. I was like, oh, you can do that? Oh, you can do that? Let's see if I can get somebody to donate me some money. I didn't know we could do that. Right? But that was the thing. You got to be able to see that disruption as an opportunity to do something different. And y'all will get all these thoughts, absolutely. But in order to do that, you got to see it differently. And that's your mindset thinking. That's challenging past limited beliefs. So think about COVID, and somebody else brought this up. I worked in a healthcare organization. Say about healthcare. How many of y'all work in healthcare and have worked in healthcare? Moves like wood, an ocean like wood. Don't nothing change for 5 years. By the time something happens, it's old everywhere else. But healthcare is brand spanking new, right? People having virtual meetings was, oh my God. And then in COVID, I worked in HR. And we had people coming to us for 10 years talking about, can we have some virtual options? And you know what we call them? Lazy. I'm sure these lazy kids want to work from their house. I mean, how is that going to happen? Because as a generation, we're saying, you got to show up to work to do this. You got to be present. Why? Because that's how I had it. And why did you have it that way? Because that's how somebody had it before you. And then that's how somebody had it before them. When we saw this disruption, we didn't know what to do at first. I literally remember being on the phone call. People said, well, how are you going to get people to work? Well, then you're going to have to start making people. You can't fire everybody. And someone is going to go away. You know, we can't do that. We had to be able to pivot. And what we recognized is that our entire organization didn't know how to use technology. How many of y'all remember the biggest words of 2020? You on mute. Barry, you're muted. We don't hear you. Those words got us to 2020 and 2021. Turn your camera on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn it on. Right. Yeah. I remember people sitting in meetings and one lady had her phone down. She had the meeting going on and her ceiling fan was about to have a stroke. Right. What we learned is that not only our organizations, but our chapters had no idea how to use technology. People on Zoom having private conversations in the background. I had heard no personal business. And I'm like, Miss Candy, we just gonna have to come and click it off. Right? Because I'm hearing all the stuff on others be talking about. And it's the whole problem. Sure, you didn't have to go to school and tell your business no more. Right? Somebody walking past the TV, forget the child on Zoom, and you ain't got no clothes on. And your whole third grade class is in there. Right? We didn't get that, but we had to adapt. Now, we still say today, okay, well, I can't hear you, you're muted. But how often is it by comparison to how we speak? We adapt over time. Same thing happens in working in the chapters. So you got to build the capacity of your team. It don't always happen overnight. Sometimes it takes years, but it happens. Maintain your focus amidst uncertainty. How many of you know what your vision is for your chapters? Okay? All right? Know what your vision is. And I teach in stories. I ran for freshman class president at Southern University and I lost. First election in my whole life I ever lost. When I tell you I cried. I lost to one of my really good friends now, but I hated her to death. So my mentor mentor, I worked for him, and I came in there. We were talking about politics. I'm a poli-sci major, and we were talking about wins and losses and all these different strategies in politics. And he asked me while I'm sitting there crying, tears in my eyes, because I was in a generation where elections, you had to spend a whole lot of money. Right? People, mama was cooking and bringing plates and everything. Right? I had a jambalaya cookout right in front of Stewart Hall, like it was a thing. And he said, "What was your vision for the freshman class?" And I was like, "I don't really have one. I just wanted to win." Well, what does the freshman class president do? I mean, I'm sure they got work. I wanted to win. And then my mentor told me in that moment that the best woman won. I was crushed. I'm like, how did you say that? And he said, if you have no vision, then why are you a leader? Where you going to lead them to? What's the goal? And so in your leadership, maintain focus and midst of uncertainty, recover quickly from setbacks. Make sure that you understand that in order for people to follow you, they got to be following something, right? Build your vision. What is it that you want your chapter to be? Be aware of yourself, identify your triggers, and you know when you talk to somebody in your chapter and that feeling is coming, that rising is coming in the back of your neck, that heat is getting in, you either got to stop this conversation politely and say, you know what? I got somewhere to go. Let me lie. It's fine. Ain't nobody lying. Because what you're doing is setting yourself up for better in the future when you are more mentally prepared to be able to do this. You know, tell about a certain thing. That's right. Get away with that. Because you didn't go off on your member and create a culture where nobody gonna say nothing to you as a leader. Challenge the beliefs that are limiting. So when you challenge beliefs, here's the thing I need you to remember. You challenge a process, not a person. That's an important distinction. So when someone has an idea that you don't think is smart, you don't say, well, you always go that way, Sharon. You tell somebody they always do something. The one time they didn't do it, they're going to tell you they didn't, and they always remember that. You challenge them, question the process, not the person. And that's something that gets you a far better place than anywhere else. Establish practices. When I'm talking about those feedback things, so for individuals, is mindfulness and journaling. Like, I did not, to be honest, I grew up looking like I do. And mindfulness and journaling was nothing my ever told me to do. But it helps. It does help. Seek feedback actively. But remember, in your chapters, if you want people to give you feedback, teach them how to do it. Yeah. Don't just say, oh, yes, give me your feedback. And then the moment they give it to you, they hit you personally, and it's like, I can't believe they feedback. But I always love accepting feedback. All right, goal setting. So SMART L, always learn and add a component to that goal structure. So even when you complete your goals for your vision, so you create your vision, you create your goals for your vision, you got to go back and design what it is you learned. Identify what it is you learned. Create milestone celebration. Sometimes you ain't going to get to the end. Right. If we decide that Southern University got this capital campaign and all these millions of dollars we're trying to raise, how many of us think, realistically we're going to be able to see every single building go up? I mean, maybe my grandchildren. Maybe. Right? But every single thing is a place to celebrate. Because if you can't celebrate milestones, you'll never celebrate it all. You gotta celebrate the little wins. So if Miss Janice figured out how to finally send that email right to everybody in the chapter, we're gonna celebrate Janice. That's a good job, girl. You did that, Janice. You give her due. Because it matters, and it keeps her engaged, and it keeps her learning, and it keeps her wanting to do more. 360 feedback loops, gather insights from multiple perspectives in your leadership. I need you to understand not everybody sees it from your perspective. Think about I'm going to bring it on back to old school stuff. So, not old school, but like in a Greek organization. 360 feedback where I'm gathering insight from multiple perspectives ain't going to happen if I'm a chapter leader, right? I was the president of both sides, and I ain't giving none of them that side. It was all about what I had to say. But I had alliances to pull me aside and was like, it's just everything you want to do. Is that how you want to lead? And at the moment, I'm like, yeah. And then that was great until I showed up at every single program where nobody ever believed me. Right? Gathering that feedback on how you can do better is going to help you not be the only person in the room. Implementation plan, like develop clear action steps and feedback received. You got to keep that message, keep that feedback that you're going. And people need a plan. You can't just have it all in your head and expect everybody to know what you think, right? Write it down. And don't just write it down on your own. When they talked earlier about what's your chapter plan for the year, that needs to be a group effort. Because everybody's perspective matters. In one of the organizations I was in, we would storyboard the entire year, what we were focused on in January, February, March, October. And we would have to create a visual map of what that looked like. And that visual map was out there all year for every member to see. That wasn't a chapter organization like connected to a university. It was a professional organization. And just because it's not a chapter affiliation like what Howard is doing, don't mean it won't work. See what your other groups are doing. All right, and put those things in your tool sheet. So mindful language and feedback. We always fixed language sounds like I'm not good at this. And when you don't feel like you're good at stuff, are you gonna try it? Nope, not at all. You're like, no, not my thing. And then you gonna consistently say, it's not really important for me to learn how to do that, right? But it is important for us to learn. I'll never understand. This is too hard. Those things stop you from trying. You gotta get rid of them. You gotta go through a reframing process. So catch those negative thoughts, challenge their validity, and go through growth-oriented alternatives. Now, if you ain't good at it, say, I'm still learning. Instead of, I'm not good at it, I'm still learning. There's nothing wrong with saying that. As the leader, you don't have to have all the answers, and you don't have to know how to do everything. That's why you have chapters. It's okay to let somebody lead, right? I'll understand with more practice. If the AI stuff is new, y'all got somebody in there that may know how to do AI and don't think they only the 30-year-olds. I have a colleague, 65 years old. He was the one to show me how to use AI for my email, right? It organizes my inbox. Anybody inbox privacy? Y'all got thousands of emails. Yes. It'll use Copilot. It'll clean you all up and create folders and everything. My life became different when I started seeing 16,000 emails in my inbox. Yes. It just, because every day you open that, there's a certain amount of pressure. You know you ain't gonna read all that. There's no way you won't go through it, but you still feel, and how I know it's important. Because it's 16,000, I bet something here is important. And I missed it a long time ago. Right? But I used that AI. He taught me how to do that because his granddaughter taught him how to do it. Understand that just because somebody older knows me and they got somebody at home teaching. I have to ask my son lots of questions. As a diversity officer, I get lots of nuances, right? My son knows things that I don't know about identities and all of that. I gotta go, so what does that mean? So then that's, okay, that's how it works. So I come up at work like I know what I'm talking about. I talk to an 18-year-old who understands better than me what this is about, right? Because I grew up in a certain way, thinking a certain way, and their generation thinks different. It's completely different. Utilize those people. Stop thinking that only your 30-year-olds know how to work AI. Because somebody got a grandchild. Again, my grandmother uses emojis better than anybody. And I got to ask her what they mean. And she got to do sit at home, play with her phone and see what kind of emojis out there. But it happens. So make sure that you understand that with more practice you can get better. Building your legacy. At the end of the day, you are leaders, not bosses. And you are here to create perpetuity, to help ensure perpetuity for the next generation. Amen? I told y'all my grandfather is a Baptist preacher, was a Baptist preacher. He also, and lately as I've gotten older, things like this are important to me, I don't know why. He also happens to be Reverend Lionel Johnson Sr. He was the first and longest office holding president of the system. And one of the things that he would always instill in us is that you are not living here for a moment. You are here for longer than that. And you are building a legacy like I am. And when he would say he's building a legacy, I'm like, with who? He would never answer the question. People are always watching what you're doing. And I want you to go back to think about what would happen or where would we be as a system if the people, and I'm not talking about him, had a fixed mindset about something they had not seen with Southern University. We have been at Southern University, Shreveport. Ain't got no Howard, North Carolina. It doesn't exist. A fixed mindset gets you to the next level, which gets you to the next level. You don't hold that job forever. The one since you hold it, you are but a steward to pass it to the next generation. And in order to understand that perpetuity is your responsibility, you gotta know you're gonna be in that seat forever. You gotta pour it to the next generation. I sat there this morning when we went through, we were sitting in the Jesse Stone building, and I got a little teary. There's a picture of me with Dr. Stone. I'm like 3 years old, smiling, had no idea who this man is. And I'm sitting in this building, and I'm thinking, man, that's legacy. And it pours into the next generation, so that the next generation stands there in front of you. That mentor I told you about that told me that the right woman won is Richard Turner. I worked for him. I had a full-time job. Y'all was in the picture of me in college. I was always in business casual, retired. And people thought, oh, that's how she dressed because she's a No, I had to go to work. And Mr. Turner didn't play that. What come in with jeans, right? I had to work in slacks and a button-down shirt every day while on Pretty Wednesday. Everybody looked real cute. I looked like I was going to work because I was. Right? But that man poured into me, and that's legacy. Your chapters create legacy for our university, and you create legacies for them. Understand in order to build that legacy, you got to have an area of focus to work on. So some of the things I talked about, these main things in chapters, we all got something to work on, and none of us perfect. Pick one. And I'll give you an action plan that you can kind of use to do this. Create a growth goal, just pick one. And make sure that you add your development to it. Some action steps in your chapters. Establish both short and long-term checkpoints, because you got to celebrate wins along the way. None of us gonna end up perfect, but nobody perfect but Jesus. And tell you right now that you close your eyes, you ain't gonna be perfect either. Just make sure you say, I'm so sorry, Lord, for you. Create a support system. Brene Brown calls it her square squad. Some people I call to tell me the truth. And some of the people that I call will tell me to be straight on chest. So I'm gonna need to be ready for what I'm about to hear. When I think I did something a little bit wrong, I got one line sister. Then I call every time she's gonna tell the kid. Not you, but the other kid. My line sister kid. And she's gonna say, do you want me to tell you the truth or do you want me to lie to you? And I'm like, if I'm feeling like it, go ahead and lie to me. And she's like, you're amazing, everything is wonderful. But I want you to tell me the truth. She was like, first of all, you did this wrong, that wrong, this wrong, that wrong. You should have done it this way, you should have said that way. And by the way, your attitude was stinky. Okay? And I'm like, well, dang, I was just asking my experience so frustrated. But I'm really good at accepting feedback. Alright? But understand that you can't get feedback from everybody. So you gotta pick you something that you trust. And people not afraid to tell you the truth. If you got a bunch of yes people around you, you ain't gonna get nothing done. Right. Not one thing. Yeah. Right? Make sure that if you're gonna be ensuring the perpetuity and building legacy, you gotta build it with people who gonna tell you the truth. Yeah. And it may not be what you agree with, but that don't mean it doesn't have value. Very last slide, I want you to remember that your mindset shapes all of your success and your team, your chapter's potential. You got to commit to one thing and grow, because as leaders, you all need to do it. We all need to do it every single day. And share that growth mindset with your colleagues, with your chapter. You'll get this slide there. Feel free to go over it. I'll have my information. Call me, we'll talk through it beforehand. I have no problem with that. And just remember, you got to stretch yourself, because nothing worth doing is easy. It's hard. It doesn't take overnight. It takes time, and it takes stretching. But once we get there, it's going. Thank you.
Thank you, Renata. Thank you. Give another round of applause.